ਕਾਰੋਬਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਅਸਰ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ, ਜਿਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਨਾ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ। ਪਰ ਹਾਲ ਹੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ ਇੱਕ ਅਜਿਹੇ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਨੇ ਕੁਝ ਕਾਰੋਬਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਇਆ। ਜਾਰੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਇੱਕ ਸੁਤੰਤਰ ਆਰਥਿਕ ਵਿਸ਼ਲੇਸ਼ਣ ਦੇ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਇਹ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਈ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਆਇਲੈਂਡ ਖੇਤਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੈਲਮਨ ਫਾਰਮਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਮਜਬੂਰ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਨੌਕਰੀਆਂ ਖਤਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਪੈਂਬਲ ਰਿਵਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ ਸਲਮਨ ਖੇਤੀ ਦੀ ਰਾਜਧਾਨੀ ਹੈ। ਮੱਛੀ ਪਾਲਣ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਜੁੜੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ, ਜਿਸ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਹਿਯੋਗੀ ਸੁਖੀ ਕੌਰ ਨੇ BCSFA ਮੈਂਬਰ ਜੌਨ ਪੌਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।
Thank you, John, so much for joining us today. I'd like to start off by asking you if you can explain BC's aquaculture industry to our viewers who may not be aware of its impacts.
Well, hi, Suki, and thanks for having me. It's a large industry. It's a $1.6 billion economic generator, the largest seafood export producer in British Columbia, and probably the largest agri-food and aquafood producer in the province as well. So we're number one. We have markets all over the world. Our industry employs, either directly or indirectly, about 7,000 British Columbians across coastal BC. The majority of those folks reside in northern Vancouver Island, but there's a considerable amount of people active in aquaculture, in particular in the Surrey area. Last year we donated over 500,000 meals to Canadians at this time of real challenge, and we're really proud to do that. 80% of the salmon that we produce comes through Indigenous partnership agreements, which is fundamental, very important to who we are. And interestingly, we are the lowest carbon output animal protein producer that you can find really in the world. So good for the climate, good for communities, and good for your body. It's extraordinarily healthy food.
Great. John, can you explain or how can the federal government justify putting hundreds of Surrey residents out of work, especially during a pandemic?
Well, that's a good question, and I hope you ask it of them. They won't talk to us. They won't talk to anyone about this decision. It's really quite shameful. We weren't given any advance notice. They probably thought the decision was only going to impact those northern Vancouver Island communities that this government really doesn't have any interest in politically. But little did they know that Surrey is actually a very important aquaculture hub. So you're looking at around 350 family supporting jobs. That's direct. But across the province, you're looking at well over 1,000 jobs that those businesses in Surrey actually keep alive and sustained. And you think at a time of a pandemic, the most important thing is to make sure you don't do anything that's going to make it harder for people to get through this difficult period. So the government's way off script here, and probably should get back on script.
Do you think the government didn't know about the impact on Surrey workers?
I don't know, and if they did, that's even worse.
Correct.
And so the funny thing is that it's not us doing this to the government today or with our report. It's them doing it to themselves and to the people of Surrey. This is their decision. All we're doing right now is talking to people, asking them to share their stories, which they're doing so courageously. People who are now really worried about their homes, their mortgages, their children, how to take care of their parents. People who've come to Canada, people who've been lived all their life in Surrey, who are now really concerned about what's happening here. I don't know. We certainly weren't consulted. And again, the government doesn't return any calls or any emails. So how are we supposed to know?
Any word if the federal government's reached out to offer programming or support for impacted Surrey residents?
No, if I were to stop talking now, Suki, and we were to be sort of bathed in silence, that would be the entire totality of the government's response since the decision they made back in December.
According to the independent economic analysts you've commissioned, Surrey is BC's salmon farming hub. How devastating could the Discovering Islands salmon farming decision be for Surrey workers?
Quite. But of course, it's uncertain. We don't know how big the impact is going to be. We've looked at the data. We can see where the direct and indirect job impacts could be. There is probably a lot more information that we haven't yet been able to accumulate. The input-output models that our economists did with StatsCan data would indicate that the impact could be quite considerable in the Lower Mainland. So, happy to share all that information with the government. If it didn't have it when it made the decision, to your earlier question, that's pretty remarkable to me.
And as far as local politicians here, especially in Surrey, what do you think they can do to help the situation?
Oh, a lot. And, I think MP Dhaliwal in particular, because a lot of these facilities are in his constituency. He's a man that I've known for many, many years, a true gentleman. I think this is something that he's really going to really need and want to take a quick, hard look at. I know for a fact that he wouldn't have been consulted when this decision was made. Because really the decision wasn't about Surrey, it was about other ridings north of the Fraser that I think the government's more interested in winning. It certainly wasn't for the ridings and the voters up in northern Vancouver Island that this government has and for quite some time written off completely.
And in closing, John, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. I mean, one of the things that's so troubling about this is the fact that it's happening when people are really struggling. The other part that's quite remarkable to me, and I know this has a particular impact in the South Asian community, is that we're farmers. We care about food, we love the food, and we take care of the animals, and we're proud to be able to deliver, both in Surrey and elsewhere and around the world, a really great ocean-raised product. And so, unfortunately, right now with this decision, if it's not changed, we're going to be looking at perhaps 10 to 12 million fish euthanized and killed, which is over 250 million meals that people won't be able to enjoy. That's waste. The government's made a decision that's actually going to create the waste of 250 million meals, which will cost about $125 million in revenue for the companies that they could then invest back into their communities. But importantly, in the Surrey context, these are jobs that people came here to take. These are jobs that people in Surrey were born and raised have. There is tremendous opportunity with the sector going forward, but now it looks like there's a real panic and concern, and I really worry for the workers in our sector in Surrey. And I would hope that the federal officials and provincial officials, for that matter, make it very clear to this government there's a better way, and they should think about that today.
Great. Thank you so much, John, for the information and joining us on the Canada News Bulletin.
It's okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
ਸਾਡਾ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵੇਖਣ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨ ਲਈ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ ਚੈਨਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਬੈਲ ਆਈਕਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਬਟਨ ਤੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ।